Hi guys and welcome to Crazy Pepper Revenge. This channel is all about crazy true stories, stuff that happens in real life when things get a little bit messy, people dealing with drama, cheating, lies, breakups, and even revenge. Some stories are wild, some are emotional, but all of them will keep you watching. If you like real talk and real situations, you're in the right place. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and stick around. This is Crazy Pepper Revenge, where the stories get spicy.
She cheated on me with him, and now he's at the bottom.
The day everything changed, I came home early from a work trip. Heard familiar sounds from upstairs that shouldn't have been there. My heart pounded as I climbed the stairs, knowing what I'd find. Opened our bedroom door to see my wife of 30 years with Brett, her boss, some balding lawyer, in our bed, the bed where our children were conceived. My wife asked for an open marriage after I caught her cheating in our bed. Here's how I got my life back. This happened about a year ago, but I'm finally ready to share the whole story. I'm John, 52, engineer, been married to Maggie for 30 years. We have two grown sons, Jimmy, who just graduated, and Sid, working on his doctorate in ocean engineering. I thought we had everything figured out. I provided well, traveled constantly for work designing industrial systems, loved her with everything I had. She was this stunning blonde I met in college, way out of my league, but somehow I won her heart, or so I thought. I had a rule back in college. Never date someone more than 2 levels above you on the attractiveness scale, because the lower person always gets hurt. Maggie was easily a 10 with ice blue eyes and hair that caught sunlight perfectly. I was maybe a 5 or 6 on a good day. I broke my own rule and paid for it 3 decades later. We met in the student center when she approached me asking about some guy. Her laugh was like music, and when she smiled, I literally blushed. I told her she was out of my league, but she followed me anyway. We talked for hours. She was studying to be a paralegal, bubbly and confident. Early red flags I ignored. She promised to break up with other guys to be exclusive, but I caught her holding hands with Tim a week later. When confronted, she said she needed time to end things properly. I told her if I found her with someone else again, it would be over. She swore it wouldn't happen. Fast forward 30 years. I traveled constantly for work, oil fields, small towns across the country. She complained I was always working or fishing. She'd gone to law school, but worked as a paralegal at a prestigious firm. Said she loved the legal environment. I never questioned the late nights or client dinners because I trusted her completely. The day everything changed, I came home early from a 3-day trip to Virginia. Something had gone wrong with the client meeting, so I wrapped up a day ahead of schedule. Drove straight home excited to surprise her, maybe take her out for a nice dinner. I unlocked the front door and immediately heard sounds from upstairs. Familiar sounds that shouldn't have been there at 3 p.m. on a Tuesday. My heart was pounding as I climbed those stairs. Each step felt like walking toward the executioner. I knew what I was going to find, but couldn't quite believe it. Opened our bedroom door to find my wife of 30 years with Brett, her boss, some balding middle-aged lawyer from her firm, going at it in our bed. The bed where we'd made love thousands of times, where our children were conceived, where she'd whispered that she loved only me. The rage was instant and volcanic. This wasn't just cheating, this was desecration. I grabbed this pathetic excuse for a man by his thinning hair and yanked him back so hard he yelped. "I want to destroy you," I said quietly, because I don't yell when I'm truly angry. I speak softly and make people strain to hear the menace in my voice. He was whimpering something about suing me, how he was important. Did I know who he was? "Lift your chin," I told him calmly. When he refused, I repeated it with more steel in my voice. He finally complied, probably thinking he could take whatever I dished out. I proceeded to punch him in the face 3 times, each blow landing with a satisfying crack. My knuckles were bleeding and his nose was definitely broken when I was done. Maggie was screaming, "John, what did you do?" John, it's not what it looks like. The sheer stupidity of that statement when I'd literally watched them for 30 seconds before acting made my blood boil even hotter. I looked at her with all the disgust and betrayal I felt and said, "Screw you," in that same quiet, threatening tone. She had the nerve to ask if I knew who Brett was, like his status as some hotshot lawyer mattered. "Do you think I care?" I asked. "How could you do this in our bed? Screw you." Then I walked out, ignoring her pleas to stop and talk. Got in my truck and drove straight to the liquor store for a bottle of Maker's Mark bourbon. Ended up in a Walmart parking lot drinking straight from the bottle, watching traffic and ignoring the constant buzzing of my phone. Maggie was calling and texting nonstop. When I finally answered around the 15th call, she said, "We need to get past this," and asked if I enjoyed catching them again. That word again hit like a knife. I called her the strumpet I'd married and hung up. Slept in my truck that night in the Walmart parking lot. Woke up with my back screaming from the cramped position and my head pounding from the bourbon. Bought some clothes from Walmart, changed in the truck, and showed up to work the next morning at 7:30 a.m. reeking of booze and regret. My business partner Bob took one look at me and knew something was catastrophically wrong. "What the hell happened to you? You smell like you bathed in Maker's Mark." When I told him I'd come home early and found Maggie in our bed with another man, his face went white. "Oh crap, are you sure? Did you catch them or just suspect?" When I showed him my abraded knuckles and told him I'd kicking the hell out of her boss, Bob sat down heavily. "Did you destroy him?" he asked quietly. When I said no, that the fool was probably pressing charges, Bob shook his head grimly. "It would have been better if you did. Crime of passion versus premeditated attack. You're screwed, buddy." That's when the full reality hit me like a freight train. I was going to be charged with attack and battery. I'd probably lose my business due to the morals clause in our partnership agreement. My 30-year marriage was over. The woman I'd loved more than I thought humanly possible, who I'd given everything to, had thrown it all away for a quick role with some bald, middle-aged lawyer. The boys would be devastated. Everything I'd built was crumbling. I couldn't face dealing with lawyers and police and her crocodile tears and explanations that would never make sense. So I made a decision that probably saved my sanity. I had a 33-foot Grady White yacht with twin Yamaha 350 motors docked at the marina, my one indulgence that Maggie had always complained about. That afternoon, I gathered what I needed, went to the bank to set up a new account, left Bob a note explaining I'd work remotely, and prepared to sail south. My plan was ambitious but necessary for my mental health. Island hop down the entire eastern seaboard. Virginia Beach for fuel, then Charleston, avoiding Oregon Bay, Jacksonville, Cape Canaveral, Fort Lauderdale, and finally Nassau in the Bahamas. At a couple hundred miles per day, depending on weather, I figured it would take a week or two. I had a 560-gallon fuel tank and enough provisions for a month if needed. Those first few days at sea were simultaneously the loneliest and most peaceful of my life. Just me, the autopilot, the endless blue ocean, and way too much bourbon trying to numb the image burned into my brain of my wife with another man in our sacred space. I'd set fishing lines and try to focus on the mechanics of navigation, fuel consumption, weather patterns, anything to avoid thinking about her betrayal. But the thoughts came anyway, usually around sunset when the loneliness hit hardest. I'd remember meeting her in college, how her laugh made my knees weak, the way she looked at me like I was the most interesting person in the world. Our wedding day when she promised to forsake all others, holding our newborn sons. Thousands of moments that now felt like lies. The phone kept buzzing with messages from Maggie. 54 texts, 30 emails, 5 voicemails by the time I finally checked in Virginia Beach. All variations of, "This doesn't mean anything," and "Please come home so we can talk," and "Don't give up on us." The hypocrisy was breathtaking. Don't give up on us? She'd given up the moment she spread her legs for her boss in our marital bed. When I finally answered one of her calls somewhere off the Carolina coast, she kept insisting it was just one time and didn't mean anything. I asked her the one question that mattered. Why? She couldn't answer. Just kept crying and begging me to come home. I told her I wouldn't speak to her again until she could explain why she threw away 3 decades for a quick peek with her boss. She never could give me a real answer beyond "it just happened." The boys got pulled into the mess, which broke my heart worse than anything. Jimmy, always a mama's boy and star athlete I'd coached for years, initially took her side asking what I'd done wrong to drive her to cheat. That hurt almost as much as the original betrayal. Sid was more patient and understanding, probably because he's more analytical like me, but even he was confused about why I just disappeared without explanation. I hated that they were caught in the middle of their mother's betrayal, but I couldn't bring myself to poison them against her by sharing details. They'd figure it out eventually. I just told them I needed time away and would explain everything later. After weeks of sailing and drinking my way through increasingly tropical waters, I finally reached Nassau. The marina was bustling with activity, and I felt like a ghost moving through the world of normal people who hadn't had their lives destroyed by betrayal. I rented a slip, tied up the boat, and tried to figure out what came next. That's where I met Sarah during a Category 2 hurricane that swept through the islands. She was there with her parents on a 60-foot sailboat, going through her own messy divorce. Her parents were this amazing couple, Ben and Beth, still deeply in love after decades together, finishing each other's sentences and looking at each other like newlyweds. Everything I thought Maggie and I had been. Sarah was beautiful in a different way than Maggie. Natural blonde hair, green eyes, around 30, but what struck me most was her kindness. She was nursing her own broken heart but still had compassion for a stranger. We helped secure boats against the storm, and her family took me in when I had nowhere safe to ride it out. Sitting on their couch during the worst of the hurricane, Sarah fell asleep against my shoulder. I held her while the wind howled outside, and for the first time in weeks, I felt something other than rage and despair. She was proof that good, loyal women still existed in the world. We became close friends over the following weeks. I taught her father how to sail more confidently. We went fishing together, had dinners with her parents. Sarah understood betrayal in a way most people don't. Her ex-husband had cheated too, though not as brutally as Maggie. We talked for hours about trust and loyalty, and whether it was possible to love again after being shattered. Eventually, I had to come back to face the legal music. Maggie was waiting at BWI Airport looking terrible. Thinner, bags under her eyes, but still heartbreakingly beautiful. She begged me to come home and forget this happened, said we could work through anything. I told her it wasn't my home anymore, and that her betrayal had destroyed the foundation of everything we'd built together. Got charged with attack and battery. Brett was apparently running for state's attorney and pushed hard for prosecution, wanted to make an example of me. But when I appeared before Judge Harriet, known for being ruthless, and explained I'd found them in flagrante delicto in my marital bed, she was surprisingly sympathetic, asked if I had any statements before sentencing. Your Honor, I'm sorry my actions brought us here. I wish I could say I won't do it again, but if I caught my wife with another man in our bed again, I'd be inclined to punch him again. The judge actually smiled at that and gave me probation instead of jail time, saying she understood my reaction. Under extreme circumstances. Even she recognized the difference between random violence and a husband's justified rage. The business situation was trickier. I'd been fired due to the morals clause, but Bob worked with our lawyers to bring me back as an employee rather than partner until the legal issues resolved. We couldn't afford to lose the expertise I brought to the firm, and several major clients had specifically requested my involvement in their projects. Had one final lunch with Maggie at an Italian restaurant where I laid everything out. Asked her how she'd feel if she came home excited to see me and found me with another woman in our bed. She finally started to grasp the magnitude of what she'd done, broke down completely, but it was far too late. I explained that trust, once shattered like this, can never be fully repaired. The image of her betrayal would haunt me forever. She kept insisting it was just once, but her evasiveness when I asked direct questions told me otherwise. The way she deflected when I asked if she was still working with Brett, her inability to explain how it just happened, all signs this had been going on much longer than she admitted. Plus, there was that incident in college where I'd caught her holding hands with Tim after we'd agreed to be exclusive. I should have recognized the pattern. The divorce proceedings were surprisingly straightforward. She kept the house and got half our liquid assets. I kept the boat, my retirement accounts, and my sanity. Brett got fired from his law firm after Maggie sued them for sexual maltreatment and creating a hostile work environment. Apparently, she wasn't his first sufferer. His attack charges against me were dropped as part of a settlement where I agreed not to sue him for alienation of affection. Karma has a delicious way of working things out. But here's what really saved me. I stopped fighting my instincts about leagues and self-worth. When Sarah and I grew closer after both our divorces were final, I didn't let my old insecurities sabotage something real. She valued loyalty, honesty, genuine partnership, qualities that matter more than surface beauty. I moved to Nassau permanently and opened a branch office of our engineering firm there. Bob promoted me back to full partner, and we're doing better than ever with 5 engineers and support staff working on Caribbean infrastructure projects. Sarah moved down too after selling her house in Virginia, and we built something genuine based on mutual respect rather than desperation or lust. Jimmy eventually came around after Maggie finally told the kids the complete truth about what happened. Both boys visit regularly now with their wives and families. Last month, I was sitting on the porch of my Caribbean home, rocking my first grandchild, Jimmy's son, while Sarah brought out iced tea and we watched dolphins play in the crystal clear water. Life felt perfect and earned. Then, Maggie showed up during that visit. She looked at Sarah and me together, saw what real partnership looked like, and told Sarah to take good care of me because I deserved it. That moment of her finally taking full responsibility meant something, but it was years too late to change anything between us. The betrayal nearly destroyed me completely, but sometimes you have to lose everything to find out what really matters. I'm happier now than I've been in decades. Sarah appreciates what we have because she understands how precious loyalty is. She went through her own betrayal and knows the value of someone who will actually honor their commitments and choose you every single day. To anyone going through something similar, don't waste precious time trying to fix someone who chose to break your trust. Don't let them gaslight you into thinking their betrayal didn't mean anything. It meant everything because it showed you exactly who they really are when they think nobody's watching. There are still good people out there who will value what you bring to the table and never make you question your worth or wonder what they're doing when you're not around. Sometimes the best revenge isn't elaborate schemes or trying to hurt them back. It's simply refusing to let their betrayal define your future and building something infinitely better with someone who deserves your love and will never take it for granted.